Today's topic is very interesting. It's all about safety for women at workplace. Now, while instinctively we know that a need to create safe spaces, uh, not only for women, but for everybody at work, the reality is it is still a work in progress. And a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions, and a lot of specialists in this area, professionals, are trying to address this big challenge. It's an obvious need, but it is still a challenge. And that's exactly what we are going to be talking about today. We will have Celin Thomas, who will share about what does actually workspace truly entail, and what should you and me as audiences, as business owners, as women, what is it that we need to know about safety for women at workspace? Hey, Celine, thank you so much for joining us
Hi,
today.
Neetu. Thank you, Neetu. And I want to also thank Hen for organizing this, giving me a platform to talk about a topic that is so important and so relevant.
Hmm.
So, should I start by answering what you have thrown open as a question?
Of course, but before that, I would also quickly want to say hi to everybody from me. So, my name is Neetu Bansal, and I'm going to be your host. I'm a business and a sales coach, and most of the time, I get to speak only about entrepreneurship and sales. And today, thanks to Hen and thanks to Selin, I get to talk about a topic which is so important for all of us. So, Selin, with that, I would like to hear from you that I've seen that you come from a background of law and in social welfare. So what is your own journey into creating the space for focusing on women's safety?
My career was not always the practice of law. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I am a master's in social work with a
Mm-hmm.
specialization in social exclusion and inclusive policies from my
Mm.
alma mater in Mumbai, SNDT Women's University. I practiced as a professional social worker for more than 8 years. And during that process, I was involved in working with organizations which are into women's movement, advocacy of women's rights. I was also involved in other thematic areas as well as in corporate social responsibility as well. So my journey and my transition into law was mainly because I had my own experiences with police as well as going repeatedly before legal forums and my own experience with being a victim of sexual harassment. And that's what was the last straw in the hat. And I decided that it's important to know how to fight your own battles. And I decided that taking this women's advocacy a step further, the most obvious choice was to practice law. So I decided to stop being a professional social worker and I signed up for a law program. I
Mm-hmm.
did a complete full time law program and
Wow.
then I shadowed under a senior as well. And then I started my own practice. So
My
my
God.
transition has been has been a lengthy one. In fact, the anybody who has studied LLB, whether it's a 3 year or a 5 year program, will tell you that it can be quite gruesome, you know. So in the second year of law, I wanted to quit because there is so much to do, and I come from social work where things are very laid back. You take a very long time to see a change, but in law, whether you study or whether you practice, the change happens right in front of you, you know. Like before starting this, we were having a short interaction about an order that I got today. So you see the change happening right in front of you. The contribution is ready, it's right there. So things move a little faster here.
Amazing, amazing. I've heard about multiple stories about businesses starting from personal experiences, but I think this is the first time I'm hearing about an entire profession that have started out or got into um, because of your personal experiences. Uh, with that in
I guess
mind,
that, yeah,
huh,
there
please
is
go
an
ahead.
awareness that comes in, when you go through a situation.
Hmm,
There's a depth that you acquire, and you
hmm.
start asking a lot of questions, as to why this happened, what can I do next, so how can I be better prepared the next time. Those questions brought me here.
Got that. Got that. And I'm glad, in a way, that we're having these conversations because a lot of these conversations never happen, right? And those questions never get asked. So I'm inviting the audience to use this safe space to share your thoughts, your questions, and we'll have Celine over here who'll try and answer them. So with that in mind, Celine, since we are focusing about women's safety in workspace right now, okay, the most common word that comes, is posh. I mean, that's the first thing when we talk about women's safety in workspace. So, what exactly is posh, and whom does it apply for?
So, PoSH, the abbreviation was being used when the bill was being mooted in the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
So, typically, how laws and acts and legislations, regulations are enforced in our country is that on the state level, it is the legislative assembly that moots a particular bill, which is more state specific. Wherefore, PoSH Act is a central legislation, so it was being discussed in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So, when the bill was being mooted, because the name of the act is quite long, sexual harassment at workplace, in bracket you have got prevention, prohibition and redressal act. So they decided to call it by its abbreviation PoSH, protection of women from sexual harassment. So that's how the abbreviation PoSH has stuck all the way even today.
Okay.
And
Okay.
anyone who is helping organizations become compliant to the act is invariably called as a PoSH consultant. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the evolution of this law was something that happened through the Vishaka guidelines, which was given out by Supreme Court in the year 1997. However, the full-fledged act, which is the PoSH Act, came out into force only in 2013, which is
Okay.
several years. I mean, it is almost, you could say, 15 years after the Vishaka guidelines. So it required a lot of lobbying to be done to bring the act into force. And the good thing was when the act came out, along with it came out a separate set of rules also in the same year. What happens is when you have an act and supporting rules in place, you have a framework. So it's no longer a guideline. Like Vishaka was a guideline because there
Hmm.
was nothing else in place at that point.
Got it.
So
Got it.
when the act came into the place, you had a structure, you had compliances. Anybody who's aggrieved, who complains of
Hmm.
sexual harassment, has got a forum to go to. And it is not always that you have to end up going to the police or to the court. You have an alternative redressal forum. That's
Okay.
what the PoSH Act has brought in, and why people continue to use PoSH consultant is because that's the word that a lot of people remember. It is etched in everyone's mind. It is easier to relate to and associate with. However, PoSH is just one aspect, okay, of the entire sphere when we talk about gender studies and we talk about what are the specific issues addressing or affecting a particular gender.
Hmm.
So I believe here we are talking mainly about when say that I'm a gender consultant, I'm not limiting myself only to PoSH. I'm
Hmm.
saying
Okay.
there is much more to speak about because we are talking about other genders as well, and
Got it.
safety and protection of women over there as well.
Got it. Okay. So I guess it is the I think the right word is prevention of sexual harassment. So in that case,
Actually, both are
hmm,
used
okay.
interchangeably. But in
Okay.
the act, title of the act is sexual harassment at workplace in bracket prevention and prohibition and redressal act of 2013.
Okay, okay. So that also leads me to the next question. So is POSH a prevention approach or a remedial approach? Which one is it?
It works both ways.
Okay.
Because with respect to compliance, an organization has to proactively ensure that awareness programs happen. There is a anti-sexual harassment policy in place that they are supposed to give it out to their employees as well as share it with their vendors and suppliers as well, and
Mm-hmm.
or their business partners, which means proactively the organization has to adopt an anti-sexual harassment policy and institute an internal committee in place, which will just having that structure in place itself acts as a preventive mechanism, like a
Okay.
deterrent for people, that this kind of there is a zero tolerance for sexual harassment at workplace. The moment you have a policy in place and you educate people, you have an awareness workshop for employees, it works as a deterrent. So
Right.
it is preventive so long as you do the awareness program, so long as you
Okay.
publicize the anti-sexual harassment policy, so long as you have the IC in place. And with
Okay.
respect to whether it is more with respect to what we say after the incident has been reported, if you
Mm-hmm.
see the mechanism over there, then the IC takes on the complaint, and then you try to do whatever is the remedial measure or the redressal, because the incident has taken place. So it works
Okay.
both ways, from the
Got it.
preventive aspect also and redressal aspect as well.
Fantastic. And when you say IC, it's called I'm sorry,
Internal
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 committee.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But
And
predominantly what I
this,
was trying to say is that most of the criminal law is not preventive in nature.
hmm,
It comes into force only after the incident has taken place or a particular
hmm,
offense has taken place.
hmm. Got it. So also, Celine, earlier you used the word guideline and then you said it's an act. So for a layman, what I've understood is a guideline is it's optional, which you follow like a best practice, but it is not mandatory. But when you say it's an act, it becomes mandatory. Is that the right way to understand this?
Yes, yes, they are that is one right way of looking at it. However, when an institution like the Supreme Court gives out guidelines, it also has the arm of enforcement to it. You know,
Okay.
so a lot of like for example, even in organization, when you adopt a code of conduct
Hmm.
or you adopt a certain policy, the whole idea is that it becomes enforceable vis-a-vis that institution and the
Okay.
ecosystem of that institution.
Okay.
So if they have adopted a policy that if there is a misdemeanor or if there is a corrupt practice and the person will be given a warning or will be
Hmm.
terminated, then there
Hmm.
will be proceedings to that effect and that person will be terminated.
Okay.
Okay. So it depends on how binding it is. The effect is more with respect to what is binding and what is enforceable. So
Okay. Okay.
guidelines in certain situations can be enforceable, you know.
Got that. Got that. Okay. Got that. And I think we'll also address a question that we have over here, right? Who are the stakeholders when it comes to the POSH law and its
Hmm.
enforcement, and especially in an organization?
So, stakeholder is the first one would be the internal committee, the structure of the internal committee.
Hmm.
It's the chairperson, a member, both of them belonging to the organization on the payrolls of
Mm-hmm.
the organization, and you have an external member. This is the minimum requirement for an IC. You
Hmm.
can have n number of members, n number of external members also. Many organizations have that because
Okay.
it helps
Okay.
them ensure that everyone is present when a complaint comes in. You know,
Okay.
at
Okay.
times you don't have everyone available. So if you have more number of people in your IC, it is easier to ensure that you stay within the time frame because the time frame is clearly given. From the
Okay.
time you receive the complaint till you address it, right till the
Okay.
end of
Got
the
that.
report. It's a
Okay.
90-day process. Now, with respect to the other stakeholder, it's the senior management. Now, with respect to a company that is registered with the registrar of companies, it would be the board of directors. For
Okay.
a trust or an NGO, it will be the board of trustees and the
Okay.
board members in an association. So these are
Interesting.
the primary stakeholders, in addition to the employees, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But employees mainly are the ones who will ensure that the decorum at workplace is maintained. you know,
Okay.
because the awareness program has taken place. They are adhering to the policy which the company or the organization has adopted.
Got that. Got that. So when you're saying the management is also a stakeholder, as in they, what are the roles they have to know about it? They need to put in systems. What are the roles that these management has aside from the employees who are managing the decorum for of the law?
So, the senior management of an organization, which is the examples that I gave you, like a board of trustees or board of directors.
Hmm.
So, these are the people who are driving the organization at every
Hmm.
level.
Hmm.
They are the ones who can actually roll out or dole out the penalty or based on the recommendations that are given by the internal committee. In
Okay.
addition, they are the ones who are deciding and adopting a particular policy also. Okay, it is
Hmm.
not always one person. It is a minimum can be two, maximum can be as many members are there in the board.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
so the senior management, typically we don't encourage a CEO of an organization or an MD of an organization to become a part of IC,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that person is the highest authority in the organization to terminate somebody's employment, you know,
Got that.
because the highest penalty under POSH is also termination of employment, and a
Okay.
member of IC cannot do that. They can only give recommendations.
Gotcha.
So the
Got
senior management vis-a-vis the anti-sexual harassment policy, they have to pass a resolution to the effect that they have adopted it. And with
it.
respect to the inquiries in the IC, they are the ones who are rolling out the penalties and
Got that.
enforcing whatever are the recommendations.
Got that. I often hear people saying that the HR is supposed to be driving POSH. How right is that? Because I didn't hear you mention HR in any of your stakeholders here.
See, HR by and large has a huge mandate, you know.
Hmm.
But what I have been experiencing is that I have been training a lot of members of HR, meaning
Hmm.
training them on how to ensure that the organization becomes compliant with POSH, which means I'm teaching them how to go about conducting the employee awareness on POSH as well as
Mm-hmm.
the IC training, because the internal committee members, they are supposed to you are supposed to reconstitute them every 3 years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So every now and then investing in an external consultant to do the compliance may become a cost parameter for the organization. So I end up doing a lot of trainers training with HR, and the HR is the one which is doing the training internally for all the newly joined staff and all the reconstituted IC members. So,
Okay.
talking about HR's mandate, members of HR can always, I mean, anybody who is in any capacity in the HR team can become a part of the IC. But
Okay.
IC is separate, the internal
Hmm.
committee is separate, and the HR is separate.
Got it.
So, the internal committee is not under the HR. The internal committee is very much independent.
Got
Okay,
that.
and a lot of organizations which have not done the employees training properly, the awareness training on POSH, invariably a lot of complaints end up going to HR, and that violates the confidentiality, which is deeply concerning. Now,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of human resources department personnel, the HR personnel specifically, they do handle misconduct. Now, misconduct is a big word, because a lot of conduct and behavior can fall under misconduct, which
Got
is
that. Okay.
unacceptable. Some of the employee code of conduct clearly define which behavior is misconduct, you know. So there, if sexual misconduct is also mentioned, typically, an aggrieved woman may end up going to the HR.
Hmm.
However, the law in our country is very clear. Any sexual misconduct, especially the ones which fall under the definition of sexual harassment, has to be addressed directly to the internal committee, which is where your awareness comes in, the awareness programs.
Got that.
So the awareness program should clearly communicate to the employees that this is the email address or this is the help desk that you need to reach out if you have a complaint which is of sexual harassment in nature. Okay. And with respect to the human resources is already carrying out termination proceedings with respect to several other kinds of conducts that happen at workplace, which may include corrupt practices or a person not coming to work, taking too many leaves, lots of things. So the mandate of
Mhm.
HR is much larger,
Got that.
while
Okay.
with respect to IC it is very specific.
And you also mentioned confidentiality, right? So I think that's a there's always this fear for a woman when she is sharing an incident such as this is about how we don't want, or rather we, okay, or she may not want others, the at large to know about it, but she still wants it to be addressed. So how does Posh actually manage this confidentiality piece?
So, there is an interesting aspect in the law which says that counseling can be provided, counseling support can be extended to the aggrieved woman, okay, the
Mm-hmm.
complainant. So, if the organization has a counselor on board, or they have someone who's an external consultant who's acting like a counselor on call, then the aggrieved woman, the complainant, can go there to
Mm-hmm.
seek support. Okay, because it is important to be able to come to terms with what has happened to you. Acceptance and all is required before you actually decide to face the inquiry. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of support, that feature is there. But a lot of complainants and the people associated with the complainants, or the people who are witnesses to that incident, they are the ones who start the conversation around this, you know.
Ah, correct, correct,
So
correct.
yeah, so it even before the complaint reaches the IC, it has become office gossip, you know, like a
Hmm.
water cooler gossip. You know, usne ye kiya, usne wo kiya, he did that, he touched here, he said this, and all those
Hmm.
things, you know. All those
Hmm.
things, they start before that. So I believe the awareness workshop is what opens up a lot of people's eyes with respect to understanding which is the forum and how you need
Okay.
to approach the forum, and who are the people that you need to speak to with respect to this incident. Because
Okay.
let me also tell you, when we're talking about the aspect of confidentiality, one of the reasons a lot of women have never been forthcoming about what has happened to them is because it severely impairs their growth in their career, you know.
Hmm.
Now, until and unless the outcome of the inquiry report comes out, you don't know who is right, who's wrong.
Correct.
Okay. So it is in the interest of the complainant also to not share the details with too many people, because
Okay.
that will create, it will hamper her career, because people have a certain impression. You cannot change that. You won't
Hmm.
be able to change people's perception with this,
Hmm.
you know. So they may, and they may be in support of that person as well, whom
Hmm.
you have decided to complain against. So
Got. Yeah.
confidentiality works in your favor as well, you know.
Got that. Got that. Okay. Hmm. I have another, maybe a very layman question. I've heard people use the word sexual harassment and sexual assault a little interchangeably. I know it's not the same thing, but I would love to hear from you. What is the difference, and is there a does Posh handle address both of these things also?
The IC and the PoSH Act, do they only specifically address sexual harassment at
Okay,
workplace?
okay, okay.
Okay, they do not take on sexual assault complaints, because sexual assault, if you look at the criminal law in our country,
Hmm.
the punishment for that is 7 years and above, imprisonment.
But
Okay, the
what is the
penalty for
definition
that.
of assault and harassment?
See, assault will also include any crime under POXO, which may have been perpetrated against children. It may also include rape. Okay, so
Okay,
sexual
okay.
assault is a very broad word, while sexual harassment at workplace is more of a behavior and a conduct, and
Okay.
certain words or certain images and videos being shared. Okay,
Okay.
and even innuendos and nuances, you know, which wherein and also workplace hostile environment. Those are the
Hmm.
things that fall under sexual harassment. So
Okay.
the even if the complainant wants to prefer a police complaint, she's well within her rights to do that.
Okay.
With respect to the police complaint, the penalty is typically for sexual harassment is more than 3 years. Is
Okay.
3 years of penalty if it is proved.
Hmm.
The person, the respondent, or the perpetrator will get 3 years imprisonment, and the matter will be handled and arraigned before a magistrate. Okay,
Okay.
but for with respect to sexual assault, any penalty that is above 7 years, and
Hmm.
all sexual assault fall in that category, the matter will be heard before a sessions judge because it's a serious
Okay.
crime.
Got that. Got that.
So, and the internal committee does not have authority or power to look into complaints of rape and sexual assault. Their
Got that.
scope is very much limited and defined to sexual harassment at workplace.
Got that. I think I heard you mention earlier that as an organization and as a PoSH committee, the maximum punishment that you can give for sexual harassment is termination. But if it
Yes.
this is but if we take this to the law that is outside the organization and we are presenting it, we are present in front of a magistrate, then it can also be imprisonment of up to three
Up to
years.
three. Yeah.
Okay, interesting,
But
great.
you cannot do both together because then it becomes double jeopardy.
Oh, acha. Okay, interesting. Okay,
A
so
person
what does it
being
mean?
tried for the same offense before two forums and twice is not something that is appreciated in law. So
Okay.
the magistrate who's taking the sexual harassment complaint
Hmm.
will ask the complainant, did you go to the internal committee in your organization? Do you have an
Okay.
internal committee there?
Hmm.
They will ask you those questions.
But what happened if a woman is not happy with the internal committee's inquiry and now wants to
Report,
take
yeah.
it to the is that an option of which is available to her?
There is an appeal mechanism in place. Okay, if you're
Okay.
not happy with the outcome of the inquiry report, an appeal mechanism is in place in the act itself. You
Hmm.
can go and prefer your. You can basically it's a second round of appeal, which also
Hmm.
happens in the criminal justice system as well. You go from trial court to a high court, etc. So this appeal mechanism is basically there is a this is outside the organization because
Hmm.
it typically comes under the purview of labor department in most districts.
Okay.
So it will be a deputy labor commissioner who will be addressing the appeal matters under the PoSH Act with respect to the findings of the inquiry report. So the person, the aggrieved woman, needs to be very clear.
Hmm.
She should be aware that the highest penalty possible is only termination. If she's not happy with the termination, then she should know that she has come before the wrong forum for a redressal. If she
Okay.
wanted imprisonment, then she should have directly gone to the police.
Got that. Got that. So what I'm hearing, Celine, as a woman, it is important for me to attend these awareness programs which are happening around POSH to get an understanding of the whole act and the systems and the processes. Right? It is to my benefit, one as a woman employee to learn about this, and as an organization, it's the organization's mandate to hold these kind of awareness programs so that everybody and men and women equally get to understand what does a posh law include. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
See, awareness is the first point.
Hmm.
Is the first place that you begin with. Once the policy is in place, you need to know how to use the policy also,
Hmm,
or
hmm,
how the
hmm,
policy impacts you,
hmm,
and what kind of behavior will be not tolerated at workplace, what behavior is expected from you at
hmm,
workplace, because there
hmm.
is a decorum that we all need to maintain
Got that.
at a workplace. So this policy puts that in place. So it also puts a lot of onus on the employee rather than
Hmm.
putting the entire pressure on the employer.
Okay.
So yeah, so it ensures that there is some responsibility at an individual level with respect to each employee
Got that. Got
on
that.
what they are supposed to do at workplace.
So with that, we've come to the end of it, end of today's session. Is there anything that you would want to add, either to the women employees or to the organizations who have, who need to be aware about the how to manage this safety space for women employees?
So, to me, enforcing PoSH at workplace starts with a very simple concept and an aspect, and it is safety. Without safety, you cannot do anything. You can't have a business. You can't even educate yourself. I mean, look at all the war-torn countries. Most of the children they die just by trying to reach their schools. So without safety, nobody is safe, and it is actually a wrong way of looking at this act when we are saying that it only protects women. The idea is to ensure that you enable women to have
Hmm.
safer space to work for, and a safe space is not just protecting women, it's protecting everybody.
Correct.
So I believe it is important that we all understand that it is safety for everyone and not just for women. And the act is more gender specific mainly because, well, we are still in a patriarchal society, in a
Yeah.
patriarchal country. There will be gender specific acts, and PoSH is not the only gender specific act. We have so many acts which are with respect to age group, with respect to a gender speciality. Like, for example, India has recognized the third gender, which is the transgender person, and they
Yes.
have separate acts regulating them. We have acts with respect to age group also. POXO is meant for children.
Hmm.
Then we have Senior Citizens Act, which is meant for senior citizens. We have acts which are protecting certain minorities in our country as well, you know,
Hmm.
or people who have been underserved for several centuries as well. Like, for example, the Atrocities Act. So, affirmative action is going to be a feature of law and legislation for until and unless a society changes. So the idea is to keep creating a safe space for everyone.
Great. Thank you
That's
for that.
that's how I'd like to summarize it.
Thank you so much. So what
Thank you,
I'm taking
Neetu. Thank
away,
you, Hen. Mhm.
what
Yes,
I'm also
yes.
taking away from you, Selin, is that safety is not just a duty, it's almost like a fundamental right and something that we have to create for ourselves as much as not wait for the government to give it to us, but also for something that we have to create for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank
It
you.
is, you see, knowledge you can get in college and school, but that is limited. But awareness is an individual pursuit. And you should
Very
not
nicely
limit
said.
yourself to whatever you have learned in your academic institution. The awareness should be an ongoing process, which means you keep educating yourself of what is going around, you know, what new laws are in place, what is
And that
applicable to you.
and that onus is on us ourselves. Get that.
Absolutely. Awareness is an individual pursuit.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Celine. And thank
Thank you,
you,
Neetu.
Hen.
Thank you, Hen.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to have this kind of meaningful conversations. So, for everybody, thank you for participating in this.